You know how AI went from being kinda clunky and awkward to, well, shockingly good? The secret isn't just about more processing power or piling on more data. Nope, it's actually a really simple but powerful idea that taught machines how to focus. So today, let's dive into this absolute game changer, the attention mechanism. To really get why this is such a big deal, let's think back to a problem you've definitely run into. Remember those older translation apps? You give them a long, kind of complicated sentence, and what you got back was, well, let's be honest, it was gibberish. So what was going on? Why did these early AI models just completely fall apart with longer sentences? The whole thing really boils down to one word: memory. The AI was trying to remember every single detail all at once, and, just like a person trying to memorize a whole paragraph in one go, it just couldn't do it. It failed. And this gets us to what researchers called the long sentence problem. These early AI, especially the ones for translation, had this critical flaw baked right into their design. It made them terrible at handling anything more than a pretty short phrase. Okay, so imagine this. These old models would read an entire sentence, and then they'd try to squeeze all of its meaning, every little detail, every connection between words, into one single fixed-size little box of data called a vector. It was kind of like trying to write an entire novel on a single sticky note. It just wasn't going to work. You lose way too much information. But then, in 2014, a new idea came along that completely changed the game. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how it works, let's just take a moment to appreciate the incredible difference it made. I mean, the difference is almost funny. The old models, they did okay with short stuff, but once you got past 20 words or so, their performance just fell off a cliff. But now, look at the models with attention. They could handle sentences with 50, even 60 words, and not even break a sweat. The jump forward was just staggering. And here's the proof, straight from the original paper. That blue score you see, just think of it as a grade for translation quality. Look at the old model, the Seq2Seq. The grades start out okay, and then they just plummet. But the RNN Search 50 model, the one with attention, straight A's, a flat line of excellence. This was the moment they knew they had solved the memory problem. So let's circle back and really understand why that old method was so bad. It all comes down to something we call an information bottleneck. See, the old process was fatally simple. First, a part called the encoder reads the whole sentence. Then it tries to squeeze all that meaning into that one tiny summary vector. And what's the inevitable result? It forgets. Information from the beginning of the sentence gets lost by the time it gets to the end. That single vector was a bottleneck, literally strangling the meaning. And this brings us to the absolutely brilliant solution. Instead of trying to force the AI to have this perfect, all-knowing memory, the researchers asked a really simple question. What if we just taught it to pay attention, the same way a human does? This is the key idea. A human translator doesn't memorize a whole paragraph before they start. No way. They focus on a phrase, maybe just a couple of words, translate that, and then shift their focus to the next part. It's natural. And the breakthrough was giving AI that exact same ability. So that gives us our official definition. The attention mechanism lets a model look back at the entire input and decide, for each new word it creates, which parts of the original text are most relevant right now. It's not a blurry photograph of the whole scene. It's a dynamic, moving spotlight of focus. So how does this actually work? Well, it's a pretty elegant four-step process. As the AI is about to generate a new word, first, it looks back at the entire original sentence. It gets to see everything. Then, for each of those original words, it gives them a score. It's basically asking itself, how important is this word for what I'm about to say right now? Third, it creates its focus by turning those scores into weights, creating that spotlight we talked about, shining it brightest on the most relevant words. And finally, it combines that weighted, focused information to make its next prediction. And that prediction is way more accurate. And here's what that focus step looks like. To translate the next word, the AI might decide that the German word die is about 60% relevant at this exact moment, and Musik is about 20% relevant. See? It's not looking at everything equally. It's actively deciding where to aim its attention moment by moment. Now, this wasn't just some small tweak that made translation a little bit better. This one idea sent massive ripples across the entire field of artificial intelligence. The impact was just massive. It didn't just fix the memory bottleneck and revolutionize translation. It became the absolute bedrock for the next generation of AI. You've heard of transformers, right? The architecture that powers systems like ChatGPT? Well, it's built entirely on this idea of attention. That's why we're now seeing it used everywhere, from generating images to discovering new drugs. And it's just incredible to think that this entire revolution started right here, with this 2014 research paper from these three individuals, Dmitry Bahdanau, Kyung-Hyun Cho, and Yoshua Bengio. Their one insight truly changed everything. So, from a simple fix for a really frustrating translation problem, we got the mechanism that now powers the most advanced AI on the planet. And it leaves you with a pretty fascinating question. Now that machines have finally learned how to pay attention, what are they going to focus on next?